Okay, the big exit section. It makes the entry section look tiny. Okay, this part here is just for show. If you want to see your exit details, you can turn that on. And these are just ways of getting more information or what have you, just controls for the visuals. We'll let it come up. Hopefully this is far enough along where we'll actually see it. There you go. So there you got some basic exit information. Not really much more to say there. Now, sometimes people want to use initial stop from an open or a close, and sometimes people want to use initial stop from the high low from each end of the candle. By default, when we set entry, there you go, not close. When we do it, we default to the high low. So we get an ATR point. We say, okay, we want to be one ATR from the candle. We take the end of the candle, we add an ATR. But some strategies might be looking for super tight stops or something like that. Then you can change this and go directly from the entry price instead of the high low of the candle, which means you're going to be doing an ATR from there to there or what have you. So you can, that is the reason for this adjustment. I basically I only used it for one strategy for one person and just left it in there. And you can get more details there. Not much, it doesn't say much. It says only what I said anyway. Now, you can also set a minimum stop point. So you can say, regardless of how else the stop is calculated, I need to be a minimum of a thing. And in this case, that thing can be the estimated spread or a price move distance. And this is for your price move distance. This is for your spread. So you can say, I need the minimum stop to be 1.5 times the spread or estimated spread. And so these are just minimum sets, and you can experiment with that. It's got some, as you can see, it's got some information around there to tell you about it. And let's go on to the next one. This is the default where it uses an ATR for a stop, which is probably what almost everybody does. I've tried a lot of different methodologies for stops, and I keep coming back to this seeming to be the most effective. So you can see it defaults to 100. I've been finding recently that I like 50 for an ATR length instead of 100. Hopefully it doesn't take all my numbers, but anyway, the whenever you have an initial stop, regardless whether it's from the ATR or anything else, that allows you to get a risk calculation. That tells you how much it's going to bet. So you've got to have something for risk calculation. There's another section where you can actually do that from external inputs, but at this point we're doing it here. And if you have this selected, by the way, as you can see, it overrides the external inputs. So you know which one takes priority. Now, see, you can actually look at this and see, and what you're going to do is get a channel around here so you can see where these points are. But should I wait? Yeah, I'll wait since I already checked it. Probably shouldn't have done it. There you go. There's your channel showing you where it's going to, and as you can see, put the stop there at the channel edge there. Okay. Now, if you want to use price percentage, which you select here instead of ATR, here's your settings for price percentage. And similarly, you can, display it as a channel. Now, by default, you have a take profit point, and that take profit point you set as a risk to reward ratio. So in this case, it's 1.75 times the stop loss from the entry point. And you can see that looks like 1.5 times or 1.75 times that. So that's your thing there. And how do I say this? Well, that's about it. You can also have fixed amounts if you want, so you can play around with those. There's some information there explaining it. This becomes interesting, and I'll probably tank all my numbers when I check that. But you can actually say, instead of exiting at take profit, I want you to just start using a trailing stop. And you can do a lot of adjustments on the trailing stop. Well, it didn't kill the numbers, but oh, well, hang on, we haven't turned the trailing stop on yet. So here, let me turn the trailing stop on. Didn't kill the numbers, but I don't know if it's going to make them any better either. So this one it should do really well if it follows it up to maybe here or something. Depends on the trailing stop settings. Oh, look at that. It did. It made it all the way up there. So now you can see the trailing stop having its effect. It kicked in here and right up here. And let me explain to you how this works. I'm going to blow this way up so you can see it. When we're using a trailing stop, the take profit point goes from one line to two lines, and you can see it there. You see the dotted one and the solid one. What happens is that solid line is now your take profit point, but that dotted line is when the take profit point comes into effect. In other words, it's not going to use this take profit point until it gets this high. And the reason for the gap is so if it immediately goes down a little bit, you don't hit take profit immediately because you want the trailing stop to be able to kick in. And if you don't have a gap there, then it's never going to kick in because it's always just going to exit on your take profit point. So you get to adjust that gap. That's one of the settings. And this is the display of it so you can see how it's working. And as you can see, it's quite involved. And there's your trailing stop, which may or may not be effective for your particular situation. In this case, it's looking pretty nice, but it's not always good. Let's see, what else have we got here? Entry. Oops, got to go back down to where we're exit. Here we're getting back down. So that's the use minimum. And you can't use the trailing stop, which is here. I call it stretch. And as you can see, it actually explicitly says it needs a take profit point. So if take profit isn't selected, then this isn't going to work. And then you need some sort of other exit mechanism. And then, yeah, this also has to be checked as used as a minimum. Otherwise, it's just going to exit at the take profit point instead of using the trailing stop. These two here, I mentioned this in the external signals section, but I'll go back to that again. And look at that, it's roughly the same amount of money. And this, by the way, is how it splits. You saw that gap, remember when I had the dotted line and the solid line? This says when I create that, because I'm using it as a minimum, do I start from where the take profit was? Do I split across that so it's either side of it, or do I go above it? You know, that's basically it. It's not a big deal. And here you get to control the gap. So you can ride that up and, whoops, you can ride that up and down and make the gap bigger and smaller and see what's effective. That's basically what that is. And here you can choose how the gap is measured. So pretty interesting. Not often, I'd say it depends on the strategy. Sometimes the trailing stop, adds a little bit extra. Sometimes it tanks it. And sometimes it makes it wildly like 30-40% more profitable. So it just depends on the strategy and how it's working for you. So in this trade signals section, you can actually include and pass to Nexus an external direction. And one is going to be long, or let's say positive number will be long, negative number is going to be short, and zero means no direction. And so now if we go back down to this thing where we're reacting to that signal, which is, we'll get there eventually, here you can see it says if it goes neutral, exit, if you have this checked. If the external direction becomes the reverse of the direction we're trading, also exit. So just a couple of extra conditions you can use. You could probably is the wrong term. You can certainly do this externally and just feed the signals into Nexus without Nexus actually doing the work. But it's just a nice little convenience built in. Now, this go back just says if you're using an ATR as a portion of your trailing stop, which I have, it can actually go up and then down a little bit, and then up, and then maybe down just a little bit, and up and down a little bit. Right? Because the ATR can actually get big. Like if you get a big candle, then maybe the ATR will push this down. So instead of hitting this, it might just go around that and keep climbing. That's the purpose for having the ATR component. If you don't want it to ever go back down, you just click on that, and then it can only go up and not down. So that's what that does. Now, this diminishing profits, I'm going to use a different strategy for that because this is very, very new. So I'm going to go to another strategy where I just kind of testing it and building it. When I say very new, I mean the last couple of weeks. I built it like a week or two ago. Just give us lots of space to see what's going on here. Let's go to something. Here we go. It's a nice one to show it off. Bring this in, throw up Nexus, and you can see exactly what that's doing. Scroll down a bit. Now scroll back up a little bit. And as you can see, we've got this turned on. And we're making some amount of money. I don't know if it's better or worse for using this, but this is basically what it's doing. Reduce take profit is exactly what it says. You have a take profit line, you have a stop loss line, and you can make them after a certain amount of time or a number of bars, and you choose that, right? So say bars at a time, you can pick. When it starts coming in, because you might be saying, well, my trade hasn't taken off by now. It's already invalidated my hypothesis or thesis, whatever word you want to use. And because it's invalidated my hypothesis, I just want to try and get some money out of it. Well, rather than waiting for it to hit your stop loss so you take profit at that point, you can start bringing your stop loss down until it actually hits price. And that's basically what you're doing. And you're saying, start delay. I'm waiting 98 bars. That's probably 98 bars from there to there. Well, it is 98 bars, not probably. And then you're saying, I want you to start going in, but I don't want you to go right down to zero. I want you to go down to 25% of your original size. Original size is the measurement between here, and in this case, this midpoint here, just because we're using trailing stop as well. So this is a complicated setup because we've got moving stops, moving take profits, and a trailing stop all in one. So you can do quite a few things all at once. Now, if you didn't want your trailing stop your stop point to reduce as well, you could actually just turn that off. And now it will simply only bring the take profit down instead of the stop point. So you have that, and you see it change. It's actually a little more profitable that way. I've noticed that I played around with this a bit, and it always seems to be that you can actually make more money sometimes when you start reducing the take profit, but it never seems to actually help by reducing the stop point. It seems like that's just got to stay there. I don't know why. This is really new. I'm learning about this as much as anyone else. But I got it for a specific reason under the specific piece, under the specific idea that sometimes your idea, you're just looking at it and says, it's been too long, it's no longer valid. How does a person get out? Sometimes they just want to wait until there's a little bit of money there and get out. And how long this takes to get down to whatever number you put here, like 25% in this case, you set that. As you can see here, it's set at 196 bars, but you can set that to 3 bars, 10 bars. It doesn't matter. This one just is a fairly long strategy type style thing. And the very last section in the exit section is being able to exit at a specific time of day. And it's very similar to the entry. So right here, this is telling you what all the different fields do because I don't have a name. If I name them, then this gets too long and too wide, and I don't want to do that. So rather than have names there, I put it in this information bubble, rectangle, whatever you want to call it. Not exactly sure what show does. Show will probably just create a line like this saying, hey, this is where this is taking effect. In fact, not probably, it does. I remember that. So this one here, same as on the entry. If you check this, it will ignore this time zone, which is currently set at New York, and instead use the exchange's time zone. And this is the time that you will exit. Obviously, if you use this line, this is going to be for all days. Check that. It makes it active. If you check these instead, then it'll only be active for the days that you check. So just a thing to try out. To sort of, if you're a trader who says, look, I only trade let's say if I haven't made any money by 12 o'clock on a Saturday or 12 o'clock on any day, I'm exiting the trade and going and doing something else. You can set those times up here and you're good to go. And that's the exit section. Quite a few pieces because, getting out of a trade is what it's all about. Well, more so, I think, sometimes than getting into the trade. Anyway, I hope that all helps and is useful to you.